The gray world. The alien girl was born into a world where everything looked the same. Her people had never seen colors. They only saw different shades of gray. The sky was gray, the mountains were gray, even the flowers and rivers were nothing but dull shadows. For them, this was normal life, but for the girl, it always felt empty. Since childhood, she had often asked her mother why humans spoke about strange things called colors. She would hear words like blue, red, or green, but she could never imagine what they meant. To her, the world had only light and dark, bright and dim. But her heart told her something was missing. It was like hearing a song with many notes but only being able to listen to one. The humans had recently arrived on her planet. They traded, built machines, and shared knowledge. The alien people respected humans but also kept a distance. They thought humans were too emotional, too strange, too full of energy. The girl, however, was curious about them. She wanted to know what they saw that her people could not. Every day, she would sit near the marketplace. Listening to the humans talk, she watched their eyes shine when they spoke about the blue sky of Earth or the red fire of their home hearths. She listened to their laughter when they described colorful clothes or paintings. To her, it was both fascinating and painful. Fascinating because she wanted to understand, painful because she could not. At night, she dreamed of light. But even in dreams, she could only see shades of gray. She would wake with tears, not knowing why, deep inside, she felt she was missing something important. Like a secret locked away from her kind one day, she met a young human who worked as an engineer. He was not like the other humans who ignored her. He noticed the sadness in her eyes. He often caught her staring at their books, their pictures and their stories. At first he said nothing, but one evening he asked her gently, "Do you want to know what colors are?" The question shocked her. She wanted to answer yes, but fear held her back. What if she could never understand? What if colors were just a trick? But the human's voice was kind. His eyes showed no mockery, only care, so she nodded slowly, whispering, "Yes." "I want to know," the human began explaining. He told her about the warmth of yellow sunlight, the deep calm of blue oceans, the wildfire of red storms, and the gentle peace of green forests. His words painted pictures, but they were still invisible to her. She listened with wide eyes, but the frustration in her heart grew stronger. The more he explained, the more she realized how much she was missing. The girl asked, "Why can humans see this?" "But we cannot." The human thought for a while and said, "Maybe because our eyes are built differently, but sometimes technology can change what nature did not give. Maybe I can find a way for you to see." His words lit a spark inside her. It was the first time she felt true hope, but it was also frightening. Could a human really show her what her kind had never seen? Was it even possible still? His confidence made her believe. She followed him secretly after that day, watching him gather strange tools and crystals. She did not know what he was building, but she knew it had something to do with her. The girl's world felt more gray than ever, because now she realized that somewhere beyond her vision, colors existed. It made her restless. It made her want more. Her people told her to stop thinking about human nonsense. They warned her not to trust too much, but she could not stop. She wanted to see. Even if it destroyed her, every moment became a question. When she looked at the sky, she wondered what color it might truly hold. When she touched a flower, she imagined its hidden beauty. When she saw fire, she thought of red. When she saw water, she thought of blue. It became an obsession. She dreamed of colors she could not name, of worlds brighter than her dull gray home. The suspense grew inside her, and in the hearts of those who watched her, something was coming, something no alien on her world had ever experienced, and she was standing at the edge of that secret, waiting for the day when the human would reveal what he was creating. The human engineer. The human engineer was different from the others of his kind. While most humans came to trade, teach, or study the alien people, he preferred to observe quietly, fixing machines, building small devices, and solving problems nobody else cared about. His name was Daniel, and unlike the other humans, he did not laugh when the aliens asked simple questions or stared in silence at human art. Daniel had always believed that kindness was worth more than cleverness, and when he saw the alien girl sitting alone at the marketplace, her wide eyes full of longing whenever colors were mentioned, he knew there was a reason his path had crossed hers. Daniel had grown up with the blessing of colors all around him. He had walked under Earth's golden sunsets, watched green fields sway in the wind, and admired red roses blooming in spring. To him, colors were ordinary, something taken for granted. But when he realized that the alien girl's people had never known this gift, his heart felt heavy. He could not imagine living in a world where everything was only gray, stripped of beauty, stripped of wonder, stripped of the fire that made life feel alive. That thought would not leave his mind. It was not pity that moved him, but the deep belief that no living being should be denied the joy of seeing the universe in its full glory. At first, he tried to explain colors to her in words. He spoke about the endless blue oceans of Earth, about the way fire danced in orange and red, about the green forests that seemed alive with energy. But every time he described these wonders, her face tightened, her eyes glistened, and her lips trembled with frustration. She wanted to understand, but words were not enough. Daniel knew she needed to see. She needed her own eyes open to the truth. And so, in that moment, he made a silent promise to himself. He would find a way to make her see what no one of her kind had ever seen before. Daniel began his work in secret. He collected fragments of alien crystals from the markets, scavenged lenses from human tools, and borrowed light filters from machines used for surveying the skies. He studied the differences between human eyes and alien eyes, carefully comparing what each could capture. The aliens saw only limited spectrums of light, their eyes blind to the colors that painted reality. Daniel wondered if bending light through certain crystals might allow them to catch what was hidden. It was an almost impossible idea, but his heart pushed him forward. The alien girl noticed his behavior quickly. She saw him leaving the town during the evenings. Carrying small tools and glowing stones, curiosity burned inside her, and though her people warned her not to get too close to human strangeness, she could not resist. She followed him one night, staying hidden behind the shadows of the marketplace. He walked far until he reached a quiet abandoned workshop on the edge of the settlement. Inside, he lit small lamps and began to work. She pressed her face against the cracks in the wall, and what she saw filled her with awe. Daniel worked with patience and passion. He shaped crystals with careful hands, adjusting them again and again. Sometimes the crystals shattered, other times the lenses burned under the wrong light. He would sigh, wipe the sweat from his face, and begin again. Hours passed. Nights turned into mornings, yet he never gave up. For him, this was not just an experiment. It was a mission. He wanted the alien girl to smile, to cry with joy instead of sorrow, and to know the beauty she had been denied. One night, after a long struggle with broken pieces, Daniel spoke aloud, as if to himself, but loud enough that the alien girl hiding outside could hear. "There must be a way, if I can align the crystal with the right filter. She will see the spectrum. She will see what we see." His words made her heart beat faster. Her chest tightened, and she nearly stepped inside to reveal she had been watching. But fear held her back. What if he failed? What if his promise was nothing more than a dream? The next day, she could not stop thinking about what she had heard. She returned to him in the evening, and this time she did not hide. She stepped into the workshop, her voice trembling but firm. "You are trying to make me see colors, aren't you?" Daniel froze for a moment, then looked at her with calm eyes. There was no anger that she had discovered his secret, only a quiet smile. He nodded slowly and said, "Yes, I am. Because you deserve to see the universe as it truly is." The girl's eyes widened. Her people had always said such things were impossible. They told her not to dream, not to hope for what was forbidden by nature. Yet here was a human, a stranger, promising her the impossible with the certainty of someone who believed it could be real. She felt both fear and excitement. "But what if it doesn't work?" she whispered. "What if I can never see?" Daniel's voice was steady, carrying no doubt. "Then I will try again and again, until it does." In that moment, something changed between them. The girl felt trust growing inside her heart, trust that maybe, just maybe, this human would succeed where nature had failed. Suspense filled the air as Daniel returned to his tools and the girl watched silently, knowing that whatever he was building inside this workshop would soon change her life forever. The Hidden Workshop. The workshop stood at the edge of the settlement, a forgotten building made of stone and metal. It had once been used by traders to store goods, but now it was quiet, filled only with the soft hum of Daniel's tools. Inside, the air smelled of metal dust, oil, and the faint shimmer of alien crystals that pulsed with weak light. This place became Daniel's secret world, a place where human science and alien mystery blended together. Every night he returned there after finishing his duties, carrying pieces of glass, filters, and fragments of energy stones that only the aliens knew how to harvest. His workbench was scattered with strange designs, half-finished lenses, and broken frames. The workshop was no longer just a storage room. It was becoming the birthplace of something extraordinary. The alien girl had followed him enough times to know that this place held secrets. At first, she watched from the shadows, her heart beating faster every time he bent over his tools with fierce concentration. She saw him shaping crystals with delicate hands, carefully polishing them until they bent light in new ways. Sometimes she gasped when a crystal glowed with sudden color, though she could not see the hue, only the brightness. It made her wonder if those tiny sparks were the hidden shades that humans spoke about. The thought both thrilled her and broke her heart, because she still could not see them. She began to spend her nights outside the workshop, listening to the sound of grinding, tapping, and Daniel's quiet muttering as he tried new combinations. One evening, Daniel opened the door suddenly and found her sitting near the steps. His expression did not show anger, only understanding. He invited her inside, and she hesitated, because her people always warned her against human secrets. But her curiosity was stronger than fear. She stepped inside, and for the first time, she saw the strange objects up close. Rows of lenses reflected dim light, shards of crystals glimmered like trapped stars, and unfinished frames lay waiting for their purpose. She touched one of the lenses gently, feeling its cool surface, and whispered, "What is all this?" Daniel's answer was simple. "It is a door, and one day it will open for you." From that night she no longer hid. She came willingly. Watching Daniel work, sometimes she asked questions. Sometimes she only observed in silence. Daniel explained what he was doing in simple words, telling her how light could be bent, how invisible things could become visible if passed through the right shape. She did not understand everything, but she understood his determination. He was building something that had never existed before, and it was for her. The weight of that truth made her chest heavy. It was not pity or curiosity that drove him, but a genuine desire to share beauty with her. As days turned into weeks, the workshop began to feel like a second home. The alien girl sat on a small stool in the corner, watching his every move. She noticed how his hands shook with exhaustion when nights grew long, yet he never gave up. She noticed how his face lit up when an experiment worked for a brief moment, only to fall back into disappointment when it failed. There were times when he grew frustrated, smashing broken lenses to the floor, but the next morning he always began again. As if failure was only another step closer to success, his persistence amazed her, and she wondered how one human could hold so much hope for someone not of his kind. Suspense filled every hour they spent together. The girl often wondered if tonight would be the night, if this attempt would be the one that unlocked the secret of colors. She imagined putting on the glasses and seeing the world burst alive. She imagined crying, screaming, or even falling silent at the sight. The thought kept her awake long after she left the workshop. She would lie under the gray sky, staring at the dull stars, and whisper to herself, "Soon, I will know their true faces." But not everyone was blind to what was happening. Some of her people noticed her absence at night. They grew suspicious, whispering that she was spending too much time with the humans. They warned her that nothing good came from chasing what nature had forbidden. Her mother begged her to stop, telling her that disappointment would crush her spirit. Yet the girl refused. She could not walk away, not when she had already stepped so close to the edge of a miracle. One night, when her people's warnings weighed heavily on her mind, she entered the workshop and asked Daniel, "What if they are right? What if nature never wanted us to see colors?" Daniel paused, wiping sweat from his brow, and looked at her with steady eyes. "Then nature has never met me," he said quietly, "because I will not stop until you see. If the universe closed its doors, then I will build a new door, and I will open it for you." His words struck her heart like thunder. She realized then that his determination was greater than fear, and greater than doubt. From that moment, the workshop was no longer only his secret. It became their shared place, a sanctuary of hope. Every broken crystal, every failed lens, every spark of light was no longer his burden alone. She carried it with him. She began to help in small ways, holding tools, polishing fragments, and cleaning the table after long nights. The bond between them grew stronger with every hour. Suspense thickened, because both knew that they were drawing closer to something that could change not just her life, but the destiny of her entire people. And so the hidden workshop became a place of whispers and wonders, a place where a human's heart and an alien's longing joined together. It was no longer about science alone. It was about belief, trust, and the dream that one day soon her eyes would open to the colors of the universe, the gift of glasses. The day came when Daniel finally placed the finished object on the center of his workbench. For weeks, the workshop had been filled with broken glass, failed frames, and useless shards, but tonight something different rested in his hands. It was delicate, yet strong. A pair of glasses made of polished frames and shimmering lenses that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light of the lamps. The alien girl stood nearby, her heart racing as she watched him lift the creation with both hands as if it were a treasure beyond measure. She could not breathe properly because deep inside, she knew this was the moment she had been waiting for. Daniel's eyes were tired. His hands bore tiny cuts from the countless crystals he had shaped, and his voice was hoarse from long nights of work. But his spirit shone brighter than ever before. He turned to her, holding the glasses carefully, and whispered, "It is ready." Those 3 words made her knees weak. She felt her whole body tremble, for this fragile object carried the weight of her deepest longing. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the energy crystals, and in that silence the suspense became almost unbearable. The glasses were unlike anything she had ever seen. The lenses shimmered as if they were hiding something behind their surface, a secret locked away until the right eyes opened it. The frames were crafted with both human steel and alien stone, fused together in harmony. It was not just a device, it was a symbol, a bridge between 2 species. The alien girl reached out her hand but stopped midway, afraid that touching it would shatter the fragile hope she carried. She looked at Daniel, her eyes full of doubt and fear. "What if it does not work?" she whispered. "What if I remain blind to the truth?" Daniel stepped closer and placed the glasses gently in her hands. "Then I will build them again and again, until they do," he said firmly. His certainty was so strong that it gave her strength. For a long moment she simply held the glasses, staring at them as if they were alive. Her fingers traced the smooth edges, her breath shaking. This was the chance she had dreamed about her entire life. Yet fear pulled at her heart. If she failed now, if this miracle did not come, she would never recover from the loss. Daniel noticed her hesitation. He placed a hand on her shoulder and said quietly, "Sometimes we must step into the unknown. That is how we discover beauty." His words echoed in her mind, filling the room with courage she did not think she possessed. Slowly, with trembling hands, she lifted the glasses toward her face. Each second felt like an eternity. The suspense stretched longer than the ticking of a clock. She could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Her lips parted in a silent prayer, though she did not know to whom. The weight of the glasses pressed softly against her nose, and the coolness of the lenses settled before her eyes. She squeezed them shut at first, afraid of disappointment, afraid of emptiness. Daniel's voice broke the silence. "Open them." When she opened her eyes, the world did not remain the same. For the first time in her life, the dull gray sky above her shifted. The clouds glowed in shades her mind had no name for. The lamps that once burned dim now shimmered with warmth and fire. The crystals on the workbench blazed with radiance, exploding in countless tones she could not describe. Her breath caught, her chest tightened, and tears filled her eyes instantly. She stumbled back, gripping the table to steady herself because the workshop was no longer gray. It was alive. Her vision flooded with colors she had never known existed. Every object around her screamed with a beauty so overwhelming that she could not hold it in. The wooden table glowed with rich depth. Daniel's eyes reflected light like twin oceans. The broken shards scattered on the floor gleamed like jewels. Her lips trembled, and then the tears spilled freely. They rolled down her cheeks as her voice broke into a whisper. "It is real," she said. "It is real." Daniel watched her quietly, his own chest rising with relief and pride. He did not speak at first, because her reaction was more powerful than any words could ever be. She sank to her knees, covering her face with her hands, but she did not remove the glasses. She could not. She needed to see, to drink every moment of the colors around her. Her tears fell onto the dusty floor, each one a silent proof that the impossible had been achieved. The room glowed with her discovery, and though she could not yet name what she saw, she knew it was the beginning of a new life. The world she thought she knew was only a shadow, and now she had stepped into light. Her tears were not of sorrow but of overwhelming joy, the kind of joy that breaks the heart and heals it at the same time. Daniel knelt beside her and whispered, "You are the first of your kind to see the universe as it truly is." In that moment, she understood the gift was not just for her. It was for her people, for every child born blind to the truth. For centuries, they had accepted emptiness as life, but now a human had broken the barrier. The suspense lingered even as she cried, because deep inside she knew the truth. This miracle would not remain hidden. Her people would learn of it, and not all would welcome it. But for now, inside the hidden workshop, only one truth mattered. An alien girl had seen colors for the first time, and her tears spoke everything. The first colors, the first time the alien girl truly saw colors. It was as if the entire universe opened its arms to her. The dull walls of the workshop, which had always been lifeless gray, now glowed with richness she could not describe. The wooden table was warm and deep. The lamps shone with fiery brightness, and the scattered crystals sparkled like tiny stars trapped in stone. She gasped, her breath breaking as she turned her head in every direction. Her eyes could not rest on one thing for long, because each corner of the workshop revealed something new, something breathtaking, something that shook her very soul. She reached for a shard of broken glass on the floor, something she had stepped over countless times without a second thought. Now it gleamed with a strange brilliance, half glowing with fire, half glowing with calm. She held it up before her eyes and felt her chest tighten. "It is alive," she whispered, her voice trembling as tears ran down her face. The simple fragment of glass, once meaningless, had become a jewel of impossible beauty. She dropped it, pressing her hands against her mouth, because the world she had known was gone forever. Daniel watched in silence, his own chest swelling with pride. He did not need her words to know what she was feeling. Her tears spoke more clearly than any explanation. She was overwhelmed, but in her shock there was no fear. There was only wonder, pure and unbroken wonder. He knelt beside her and whispered, "This is only the beginning. Outside these walls the world is waiting. You have not yet seen the sky, or the rivers, or the fields. When you do, your heart will break again. But it will break with joy." The girl trembled, wiping her eyes as she turned toward the small window. For her entire life, she had looked through that window and seen only gray skies, lifeless clouds drifting across a dull horizon. But now, when her eyes lifted to the heavens, she fell silent. The sky stretched above her, deep and endless, painted in a vastness she could not put into words. It was not simply bright, it was a flood of blue, so wide, so rich, that it made her chest ache. She pressed her hand against the glass, unable to breathe, and whispered, "It is like the universe is singing." She stumbled outside the workshop. Her feet barely steady, Daniel followed, keeping a distance as he watched her face. For the first time, Sunlight touched her through the lenses of the glasses, and her world exploded. The trees that had always stood as dull shapes now burned with life, their leaves shimmering with a green that seemed to dance in the wind. Flowers along the path erupted with fire, each one different, one glowing red like passion, another soft yellow like warmth, another violet that made her heart tremble with sweetness. She fell to her knees in the dirt, tears running freely down her cheeks. Her hands reached out to touch the petals, and though they felt the same as they always had, her eyes told her a new truth. Each flower was not simply alive, it was a miracle. Each petal carried its own song, its own meaning, its own story. She pressed one against her lips and closed her eyes, whispering, "I never knew. I never knew the world could be so beautiful." Her shoulders shook with sobs, but they were not the sobs of sorrow. They were the sobs of someone who had been blind all her life and suddenly found herself bathed in light. Daniel stood behind her, silent, giving her space. He knew this moment was not his, it was hers. She was writing her own story with every tear, every gasp, every trembling whisper. For him, success was not in the invention itself, but in the way her spirit lifted, in the way her soul seemed to shine brighter than the sun. He whispered only one thing, soft enough that it almost blended with the wind. "Now you see the truth." The alien girl stayed on the ground for a long time, staring at everything, her eyes never still. The world now too vast, too infinite for her to take in. She saw the river glisten like silver, yet inside it danced shades she could not name. She saw the birds above her, their wings flashing with colors that seemed painted by the stars themselves. She saw her own hands, once gray and dull, now glowing with warmth and life. She held them up before her eyes and laughed through her tears. "Even I am different," she said, her voice breaking. "I was gray, but now I am alive." Her people began to gather, curious about her cries. They watched her falling to her knees in the dirt, her face wet with tears, her hands clutching flowers. They did not understand. To them, the world was still the same dull gray. They whispered among themselves, asking what madness had taken her. She turned to them, her face glowing with joy. "You do not understand, but it is real. The world is full of light. It is full of beauty. It was here all along, and we never knew." Her words confused them because they could not see what she saw. The tension grew heavy, for while she wept with joy, her people stood in silence, staring at her as if she had lost her mind. Daniel knew this moment was dangerous because not everyone would welcome the truth. Not everyone would believe, some would fear, some would hate. Yet, as he looked at her shining face, he knew the journey had only just begun. The gift of the first colors had opened more than her eyes. It had opened a door to change, and once opened, such doors could never again be closed. The silent tears. The alien girl stood among her people, her face wet with tears, her chest rising and falling with the weight of her discovery. To her, the world had never been so alive. Yet to them, everything looked as it always had. Gray skies, gray trees, gray rivers, lifeless and ordinary. They stared at her with confusion, whispering among themselves, unable to understand why she knelt in the dirt clutching flowers as if they were treasures. Some asked if she had lost her mind. Others murmured that the human had bewitched her, and their voices carried fear, suspicion, and disbelief. The girl wanted to explain, but she had no words strong enough, because how could she describe colors to eyes that had never seen them? Daniel stood behind her, silent, watching the tension grow. He knew this was the hardest part. The miracle had opened her eyes, but it had not yet touched the hearts of her people. He also knew that fear often rises when truth appears. The council elders approached slowly, their long robes brushing against the ground. Their faces were stern, their eyes sharp. They looked at the girl, then at Daniel, and their voices carried judgment. "What have you done to her?" one asked. "Why does she cry as if in pain?" Another added, "Humans meddle with what they do not understand. This child is broken now." The girl shook her head fiercely, gripping the flowers tighter. "No, I am not broken. I am alive. You cannot see, but I can. The world is filled with light. It is filled with beauty we never knew. This human showed me. He gave me the gift our kind has been denied." Her voice cracked with desperation, but her words only deepened their suspicion. The crowd grew restless, murmuring louder. Some believed she was under a spell. Others thought she was cursed. They could not comprehend the silent truth reflected in her tears. The girl turned to Daniel, her eyes pleading. Tell them it is real." Daniel stepped forward, his voice calm but strong. "She is not broken. She has been given sight. For all of you, the world is gray, but through these lenses, she sees the universe as it truly is. What you call madness is wonder. What you call sorrow is joy. Look at her tears. They are not from pain. They are from beauty too great for words." But his explanation only angered some of the elders. One of them pointed a long finger and said, "Humans are dangerous. They bring strange things and call them gifts. But their gifts are poison." The alien girl's heart broke as she listened. She wanted to rip the glasses from her face and place them on theirs, but she knew they would refuse. Her tears fell harder and she whispered, "If only you could see what I see." She looked around at the children in the crowd, their eyes wide with curiosity. Unlike the elders, the children did not look afraid. They looked hopeful. She reached out her hand toward them and said, "One day you will see too. One day this gift will not be mine alone." Her words planted a seed, but the elders moved quickly to crush it. They ordered her to remove the glasses, saying they were an abomination. She refused, shaking her head violently. "I will not go back to darkness. I will not forget what I have seen. Even if you hate me, I will keep them. I will keep the light." Her defiance shocked the crowd, and silence fell heavy. In that silence, her tears spoke louder than her words. Her body trembled as she cried quietly, and the sound of her sobs echoed across the gathering. It was not the sob of weakness, but the sob of truth that could not be denied. Daniel knelt beside her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. He did not tell her to stop. He did not ask her to fight harder. He let her cry, because he knew her silent tears carried a power no speech could ever match. The people watched her weep, and though many still doubted, a strange unease filled their hearts. If she was cursed, why did her sorrow look like joy? If she was broken, why did her tears shine with hope? They could not answer, and so they stood in silence. Trapped between fear and wonder, the night fell. And still the girl wore the glasses, refusing to remove them. She walked alone to the edge of the river, Daniel following at a distance. She looked at the reflection in the water, once dull, now bursting with light. The stars above her shimmered with impossible colors, and her tears fell again, but these tears were softer. "Quieter," she whispered to the sky. "They do not understand now, but one day they will. These tears will tell the story even when my words cannot." Daniel came closer and said, "Change is never easy, but your tears are stronger than their doubts. Do not be afraid, because you carry the truth." She looked at him, her face glowing in the strange colors of the night sky, and nodded. Her silent tears were no longer only her pain. They had become her message, a message her people would one day have to face. For once seen, the light could not be unseen, and once felt, the truth could never again be buried. A changed future. The days that followed were filled with whispers. The alien girl's name spread quickly through the settlement. Some called her chosen, others called her cursed, and many more did not know what to believe. Everywhere she went, eyes followed her, some with suspicion, some with quiet admiration. She wore the glasses always, never removing them, because without them, the world returned to gray, and she could not bear that emptiness again. With every passing day, her people saw the change in her. She walked with a new strength. Her eyes shone with a new fire, and her tears, though silent, spoke of a beauty they could not see but could no longer deny. The elders called a council. They sat in a great hall, their gray robes flowing around them like shadows. Daniel stood at one side, calm but watchful, while the girl sat alone in the center. Her small frame looked fragile, but her spirit burned bright. One of the elders spoke with a heavy voice. "This human has given you something unnatural, something dangerous. Our kind has survived for thousands of years without this so-called gift. Why should we change now?" His words echoed through the hall, yet the girl did not flinch. She lifted her face, tears glistening at the corners of her eyes, and said, "Because the world is not gray. It is alive. You cannot see it, but it is there. I have seen it, and I cannot unsee it. Would you choose to remain blind when sight is possible?" The council grew restless. Some argued that she was being deceived. Others whispered that her tears told another story. One elder stood and said softly, "Look at her. She does not speak with madness. She speaks with truth. Her tears are not the tears of sorrow. They are the tears of one who has touched something greater than herself. If she lies, why does her face shine with hope? If she is cursed, why do the children follow her with longing in their eyes?" The words shook the council, for even the elders could not deny that the girl's silent weeping carried more weight than arguments. Outside the hall, a crowd gathered. Waiting for the decision, the girl stood once more, her voice steady though her hands trembled. "You fear change, but change has already come. I am proof. You cannot take this away. You can call me cursed, you can cast me out, but I will not close my eyes again, and when others see what I see, when others feel what I feel, you will not be able to stop it. This gift will spread, because truth cannot be hidden forever." Her words filled the chamber, and silence followed. The elders exchanged glances, their faces uncertain. For the first time in centuries, doubt had entered their hearts. That night, Daniel and the girl returned to the workshop. The sky above them shimmered with colors she alone could see. She whispered to him, "Even if they reject me, even if they call me cursed, I do not regret this. My tears may not convince them now, but one day they will understand." Daniel smiled gently. "Tears are stronger than anger. They are the language of the soul. Your people may not see the world as you do, but they can feel what you feel. And feelings spread faster than fear." His words gave her comfort, and she knew he was right. Already she had noticed the younger ones watching her closely. Curious and eager, the future was in them, and they would not remain blind forever. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, the seeds of change began to grow. At first, only a few dared to approach her, asking what she saw. She would smile through her tears and describe it in the simplest words she could, telling them of skies that danced like oceans, of flowers that sang in colors, of stars that burned in shades too deep to name. They could not see it themselves, but her tears made them believe. For the first time, they began to wonder if the gray world they knew was only a shadow of something greater. Daniel built more glasses one by one. Each was fragile. Each took time, but he never stopped. When he placed the second pair into the hands of a young child, and that child saw the sky for the first time, the reaction was the same. Tears fell, silent and uncontainable. The sight of two weeping figures, the girl and the child, shook the community deeply. More voices rose in support, and the elders could no longer silence them. Change had begun, and it spread like fire in dry grass. Slow at first, then unstoppable. The alien girl became a symbol, not of madness, not of curse, but of awakening. Her tears were remembered, repeated in stories, whispered among children who dreamed of the day they too would see. She did not seek power, she did not demand respect. She only shared what she had seen, quietly, humbly, yet her tears carried more authority than any speech. They became a legend, proof that the universe was larger and more beautiful than her people had ever known. Years later, the council would bow their heads, not in defeat, but in respect. They would accept the gift, allowing Daniel and the girl to teach others, and as the number of those who could see grew, the gray world began to fade into memory. But even when hundreds had seen colors, the people never forgot the first one, the girl who had cried when the sky opened, the girl whose tears spoke everything. And so her story was carried across stars. Humans and aliens alike told it, reminding each other that sometimes the greatest revolutions do not begin with battles or weapons, but with a single act of kindness, a single pair of glasses, and the silent tears of a girl who saw the truth for the first time.